Good morning. Thank you for joining us today for the 28th meeting of the Lake County Board of Commissioners. Would all those who are willing and able please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of our country.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Grant us, O Lord, light to our understanding, prudence in our investigating, foresight in our planning, sincerity in our deliberating, the grace to follow truth in our judgment. Help us to be moved in our decision, neither by fear nor by self-interest, and to do our work faithfully. May we respect the authority vested in us, for thou art the source of all authority, and may use it in our directives for the common good and for thy honor and glory. Amen. Amen. Thank you. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Young.
Yeah, here.
Commissioner Plutchnick.
Commissioner Plutchnick, if I may, for the record, he is at Ohio State. He was nominated and accepted to be, you're going to love this one, the Leadership Academy for Rising Star elected officials. So there you go. So we got that in the record. But wait, there's more. I will be telling more during new business.
Okay, and Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes, I am here. Thank you. Hey, it's all good. Yes. Okay. Our rising star. Okay, in our first public comment portion, do we have anyone wishing to address the board? I'm seeing no takers. Do we have any electronic submissions, Kathy? Indicating none. Wow, okay. We are moving right along. I would like to move the finance to the top of the list. I know Mike has another obligation that he has to attend. So, Madam Clerk, if we could start with item number 5 and just do that finance block, please.
Sure. Item number 5 in the Finance Department. Resolution approving payment of bills as listed on the Commissioner's Approval Journal in the amount of $4,505,173.78.
Move to approve. Discussion? None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Young.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Resolution approving purchase orders as listed on the Commissioner's Purchase Order Approval Journal in the amount of $324,235.09.
Second. Discussion? None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Young.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Resolution increasing appropriations of various non-general fund accounts.
Second. Discussion? None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Young.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Resolution transferring cash and appropriations within various general and non-general fund accounts.
Second. Discussion? None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Young.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
And item number 9, resolution adopting the annual tax budget for the year ending December 31st, 2022.
Second. Discussion? Now, do we really want to upset Mike and not even have discussion?
That's fine.
Oh, that's fine. Come on up, Mike. We might think it, but we're not going to do it.
Good morning, Commissioners. This is a follow-up to our public hearing we had on June 29th. I did not receive any comments on the proposed tax budget, and neither did Ms. Bell. This is required from the ORC, and it entails the General Fund, Child Welfare, Board of Developmental Disabilities, Adams Board, Narcotics, Crime Lab, and Senior Citizens Levy. Basically, this is required for any fund that receives levy proceeds, and all of the millage rates are the same as what they were the last few prior years. So through the first 6 months of the year now, I updated it on June 29th through the first 5 months because we didn't have it. Our revenues and are right on track with what we estimate with that, as well as our expenditures. I'll be talking to a few departments over a couple overages, but for the most part, we're right within budget for that. So after this is adopted, this will be provided to the auditor's office, and later in September, once they review it, the Budget Commission, they'll provide this back to us, and we'll have to accept the rates in regards to that. So any questions that the commissioners may have?
I have a question.
Sir.
Um,
Oh, your microphone, sir?
This isn't directly related. It is the budget, but it's not all the aspects of the budget you're focused on right now.
Correct.
I'm thinking about the jail. And we had this discussion way back when, I forget exactly. And at the time, the result of our questioning was simply that the only way we could afford to build a new jail would be to raise taxes of some sort, increase revenues through taxation. Is that still your feeling? At the time, you were adamant that that would be a necessity. Do you
Yes.
still feel that way at this point?
Absolutely. A $100 million debt service payment would require about $4.2 million in debt service payments over a 30-year period.
I see.
So either you have to increase revenues or reduce expenditures, and that would be a drastic cut to the general fund because that's where the debt service would be. So we are pursuing every avenue for grant funding. I know we applied with the state with that, with the $50 million that was due prior to June 30th. I do feel that we put Jason Boyd and myself and Sheriff Leon Bruno and his staff put forth a good effort, and hopefully we'll hear some, but I'm not optimistic about that. So,
Thank you.
anything else, Commissioners?
None for me, sir. Okay. Very
Thank
good.
you.
Mike, thank you. Okay, if there's no further discussion, Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Young,
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. In the engineer's office, this is item number 1. Resolution awarding a bid contract to Morton Salt Incorporated for Lake County Road Department Salt 2021, untreated bulk rock salt in the amount of $654,420 as required by the Lake County engineer.
Move to approve.
Second, discussion. Jim, did you want to
Yeah.
comment?
First of all, I'd like to say that it's always nice to be number one. This is our annual budget for salt, our purchase of salt for the up and coming winter season. So their bid this year was exactly 9 cents lower than last year.
Very good. Hey, we'll take it. Can't even buy a cup of coffee for that, but we'll take it nevertheless. Okay, further discussion? None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Young,
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
In the Utilities Department, resolution increasing appropriations and transferring cash within Lake County Department of Utilities to our operating fund and Project Fund 596, lift station improvements, Adams, Melridge, and Industrial Park Project 415S.
Move to approve.
Second, discussion? None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Young,
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
In Job and Family Services Department, resolution approving Lake County Department of Job and Family Services vouchers, date of warrant July 23rd, 2021, in the amount of $497,093.61.
Move to approve.
Second, discussion? None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Young,
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
In the Commissioner's Office, resolution authorizing advertising for bids for Lake County Administrative Building 4th Floor ADA Toilet Improvements Project, bid opening August 4th, 2021.
Move to approve.
Second, discussion? None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please. Oh, I'm sorry, we have Mark with us?
Yes.
Oh, there you are. I am so sorry. Do you want to enlighten us as to the improvement in getting rid of the little slide that says?
Good morning, Commissioners. This is going to be funded by CDBG funds with the help of Rhea Benton on the 4th floor of the Nolan Building, which is the older administration building that will all be renovated and make it ADA compliant for any residents coming in or for employees of the building.
Yeah, that was an original configuration to when that building was
Yes,
built. so
yes, yes.
Not bad. All right. Any
Okay.
further discussion? Mark, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
You're so quiet sitting on. I didn't even realize. Thank you for joining us. Okay, and with that, Madam Clerk, roll call.
Commissioner Young,
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes. Okay, this brings us to our departmental reports portion of our meeting, Job and Family Services. Suzanne?
I've been in this role for a little over a month now. So far, so good. I have no additional report at this time, Commissioners.
Very good, thank you. And always a pleasure, and we're always hearing good things, so keep up the good work. You're doing a fine job, much appreciated. Our county administrator is on a much-deserved vacation, so we'll be moving on to the clerk. Our finance director gave his report just a moment ago, so Madam Clerk.
Yes, I just wanted to mention that the next regularly scheduled meeting is going to be next Thursday, July 22nd, 10 o'clock here in Chambers. Thank you.
Very good, thank you, ma'am. Legal.
No report, Commissioner.
Thank you, sir. Okay, old business. Do we have any old business to come before the board? Okay, moving on to new business. New business? I have just a couple. Last week, Commissioner Plutchnick and I had the pleasure of attending a site visit for the Old Tavern. It's in Unionville, which is kind of split between two counties. Not kind of, it is actually split between two counties, Ashtabula and Lake. And it's a historic building. I don't think it's, well, I'll be blunt, I don't think they're cutting any corners. They're putting a very passionate effort into the restoration facility. They are adding value to it, and they are very sincere in what they're doing. They're making every reasonable effort to try to restore the building to a sound state for the greater good of our community. And it was kind of famous for its wonderful meals, and historically it was part of the Underground Railroad. So there's a lot of history there. They're putting a tremendous amount of passion into restoring that. And the other item, as I had indicated early in the meeting, I'll just take it from the top here, regarding Commissioner Plutchnick. He's down in Columbus right now representing Lake County, but he is at the Leadership Academy for Rising Star elected officials at Ohio State. But as I'm so proud to say, Lake County is, I believe, the only county that actually has two representatives. Our good friend Morgan McIntosh, Concord Township trustee, was also nominated and accepted to be a member of that class. So Lake County is well represented. We're very fortunate to have such bright, promising young people coming up through the ranks and serving our community. So I wanted to share that.
Our cup runneth over with leadership.
There you go. There you go. I'm going to avoid making any Dilbert jokes right now. So, okay, and with that, if there's no other new business, we'll move into our second public comment. I'll get to the jail dead last. Is there anyone wishing to address the board at this time? Joey, go right ahead.
Sure.
Morning, Commissioners. Morning, Sheriff. I always, need to acknowledge our good sheriff here. It's a good day for our seniors as things now really have started to open up across the board, from Council on Aging to all of our senior centers. And I just thought I would take a few moments and just give you a little bit of an update on some of the happenings in our senior community. Congregate sites are now fully operating at 5 days a week at all of our locations, which has been a wonderful change, because for a while and during the pandemic it was a drive-up service that we were providing just a few days a week. So that's been excellent to bring that back. Our home delivered meals program, that's Meals on Wheels, have returned also to 5-day deliveries, which is great because we've been on a Monday, Wednesday, Friday delivery, and the seniors getting the hot meal on Mondays and Wednesdays and a frozen meal for that Tuesday. And for Thursday, they get a little tired of the frozens. So we're happy to be able to bring back hot meals 5 days a week, with the exception of Madison, which will be beginning next Monday with their 5-day delivery. So we began a collaboration with Lake Humane Society. I wanted to mention to all of you, delivering supplemental pet food to home delivered meal clients. This is the first time that we've tried something like this. It's a great collaboration. Started in June. We had 37 recipients, folks that are isolated but love their pets, of course, and this is a great way to get them some free food for those pets too. So it's sort of like a Meals on Wheels for our pets. So we love that. We're going to continue that each month. The next one is set for the end of July. Our partnership with the Board of Commissioners, Lake Tran, Lifeline, Cleveland Food Bank continues with what we call the Mobile Food Pantry. That was sort of a spin-off of our produce pickup program that was so successful during the pandemic. And we will, looks like, be continuing at least through September, and there's some conversation now to keep that continuing as well. Seniors can go online for more information to our site at lccoa.org, or of course Lake Tran also has some good information. Of course, the Board of Commissioners site with their senior services section, which is handled through Aaliyah Barajas. Yesterday, members of our resource center returned to a few of the senior centers to bring back our outreach programs. It was very successful. In one center, actually the lineup was about 14 seniors that were waiting to just get in touch with one of our outreach specialists. So that's great. We're going to continue that, of course, on a regular basis. There's a schedule that has been set up with our information and assistance specialists. And that's from one of our departments, which is called the Aging and Disability Resource Center. So they've been doing a great job. And speaking of, a group that really pulled throughout the pandemic, it is our ADRC. They were there every day, answering those calls, handing out, getting the information, mailing it out to seniors and so forth. So just wanted to mention that. Another very popular program each summer is our Senior Farmers Market Nutrition Program. Very popular, where seniors who are eligible can receive vouchers up to $50 each summer that would be usable at any of the area farmers markets. There's a short list that they can go to. We've already distributed over 250 of those. It was a big day indeed. Mentor Police were excellent assistance for us. This was at the Mentor Park and Ride, and we want to thank the City of Mentor and their police department for helping us out that day back on June 30th. We have just under 100 of those vouchers still remaining. So I just wanted to make a mention that for information and how seniors can find out about eligibility and also to receive the application and then receive those vouchers, they really need to call the Council on Aging at 205-8111, and they can then receive those vouchers. So we definitely want to use every one of them up. It's a program with Western Reserve Area Agency on Aging. Our greatest need right now, Commissioners, is rallying the community to support us with our home-delivered meal program. The pandemic caused a great surge in the number of seniors that are requesting our Meals on Wheels. And so with the great surge comes bigger routes, and in some cases more routes of the delivery routes. And so we need more volunteers. And of course, going from a 3-day delivery program back to 5 days, we ended up losing a few of our volunteers that just because schedules change and so forth. So I'm here to ask our community that this is a great program and a wonderful way to give back to our community. We can use help even if people can give us 1 day a week from about 10:30 till 12:30 is about what the route takes. And it's a wonderful opportunity, and we ask organizations, we have adopt-a-route programs, and then individuals themselves who might be able to help us out with that. So, going back to the traditional 5-day program really has meant that more volunteers are needed. So, again, to contact Council on Aging, the key person there for volunteerism is Anne Marie, so I'll just mention that. Senior Day at the Fair is coming up July the 30th. Commissioners always show up there, and it's a wonderful day indeed as we celebrate seniors in Lake County. Council on Aging will again be providing free lunch for the seniors who are in attendance that day, and lots of organizations will be on hand with great information for our seniors. Finally, I want to thank the board for the opportunity to outreach to our community with the mailing of our Bridge newspaper. There's the camera back there, right? And this has been a tremendous way, really, to keep in touch with our community, our seniors. Besides the radio program that we do each and every week, this going to 54,000 senior households in the community is a wonderful way for us to keep in touch with the seniors, educate them about resources and information that are available, and really for the folks too that may not visit the senior centers, keeps them aware of the programs available. Information for seniors, folks that are 60 and over. A new highlight of the Bridge, I might add, has been the addition of the Commissioner's Corner, which is on the front page here, and it's a great way too to feature a lot of the initiatives that are taking place right here in this room and things that are being talked about. So I do look forward to that continued feature. Finally, in that issue of Bridge, we are seeking nominations for our Senior Citizens Hall of Fame person or persons. That will take place at a big event that the Council on Aging will be hosting on October the 7th. So I'll get to your team and let everyone know that October 7th is the date. But right now, we're seeking nominations for people that have made an incredible mark in their senior years and would be inducted into our Senior Citizens Hall of Fame. And the deadline for that is August the 20th. So with that, Commissioners, I thank you for the time here, and if you have any questions.
Well, I have to say that was an impressive presentation. Thank you. That was incredibly comprehensive, and thank you for all that you and your staff are doing. I do have to ask, though, and you kind of made a plea for some volunteers, but how is your staff holding up? This has been pretty demanding.
Yeah, it really is. And so what we've done this summer is some special lunches that we've brought in to, just help them. We have a few, it seems that our nutrition department, they start their day, in some cases at 6:30 in the morning, bringing the food in and getting it ready for delivery. But every one of the departments have done just an incredible job throughout the pandemic, and I'm just so thankful for them, and for what they do for our community. So thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome, but somehow saying thank you just doesn't seem enough.
I know, right.
Is there more that we can be doing? Is there more that we should be doing? This again, we've all been looking at our front-facing nurses, paramedics, doctors. Your staff's been right there the whole time.
Well, thank you.
Is there more that we can be doing to help them out?
We'll get our team together and talk about that. I appreciate that very much.
Thank you.
All right.
Commissioner Young, anything, sir?
I did have, we can talk later. I was just wondering about, prepare yourself. I'm wondering about the hygiene. Not that I'm questioning it, but during the pandemic, when you're serving food, Meals on Wheels.
Yes.
Did that cost a little bit more in the way of resources to prepare the food and get it out, ensuring that it's not been exposed in any way?
Sure. Well, we were blessed with incredible donations from our partners at EMA with the proper types of equipment, the gloves. I mean, it was just an unbelievable partnership that Joe Busher helped us out with on a regular basis, whether it was for our kitchen personnel or for our social workers, getting back out into the community, our homemakers, another incredible team, that are there making sure that seniors are living in a sanitary environment. Well, we needed to protect them. And you're right, Commissioner. So we worked closely with EMA, and they provided us all of the proper equipment that we needed. We actually also were successful with a special grant, CDBG dollars, for some disinfectant sprayers. For the first time ever, we were able to use these special units that we actually saw first used at the Willowick Senior Center Mayor Regovich had this on display, and so we were able to purchase with that grant 5 of these special disinfectant sprayers that completely clean all of the delivery bags, probably in a most incredible way. Even though our team usually wipes them down with a Clorox, this is really an incredible new addition to what we do. We also received one for our main office at East Avenue, too.
Excellent.
So,
Thank you.
Yep.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Okay, anyone else in the audience? Yes, John.
Good morning, Commissioners. I wasn't going to speak, but I just got a question. It isn't a speech. John Music, 45 Coventry Drive, Painesville Township. I have a question, and it might be good for Suzanne and possibly Joey. I'm getting questions from seniors that are going to be eligible here for Medicare. And, and what I have found out, you apply the 3 months prior to your 65th birthday, including the month that your birthday is, and you have a window. And then people ask, well, what do I get? Do I get Parts A, Parts B, and so forth? Is there anywhere, as a Council on Aging or anything in Job and Family, or anything that the county could help with these people making their decision? Because, if you go through some of the advertisements, everybody's trying to draw them to them, you know what I'm saying? So is there anything that is available to help the people make some of these decisions in regards to what to pick on as far as Medicare and some of the federal programs?
I think
Joey, do you want to? Yeah.
So,
Come on up to the microphone. No
Yes.
cheating.
And John, a good friend of our senior community for sure. We have the Ohio Senior Health Insurance Information Program, another group of volunteers who are now going to be retrained in August at our main office, specifically for what's called the open enrollment period, which will start in October and run through December, because it can be very confusing as far as what is the best program to choose. But on a regular basis throughout the year, our ADRC, which is the Aging and Disability Resource Center I mentioned earlier, happy to take those calls and assist, or at least get the information to the senior for what they might need. So, but in August, we'll have this new grant. We're looking for more volunteers for that too. Folks that will help out answer those tough questions. What's the best plan for me? What should I do? I'm on these medications, and really we will give you the unbiased answer, and then the seniors can make the best decision. So we'll guide them through that.
And am I correct in saying,
John, if you could come to the microphone.
am I correct in saying the application time is the 3 months? The 3 months including the month of your birthday?
They call, you mean once you retire?
I do apply for Medicare.
Yeah, I'm not specific if it's the 3 month period, but our...
And they say 3 months after is a total like 6 or 7 months in there, but that is when you apply for Medicare, you know what I'm saying? Then you have to make the decisions of what you're going to get.
Yeah. So again, Council on Aging is, your resource for that information, and, obviously Jobs and Family Services can help with any of those questions as well. When it comes to, maybe taking a deeper dive and meeting with one of our specialists, Council on Aging is the place to go for sure. By the way, we're meeting, APS has been doing just an incredible job out here, and this has been one of those goals that we had coming from, the senior services levy, the development of a special department with the Adult Protective Service, and it's, Suzanne and her crew just do a fantastic job over there, and we're actually meeting this coming week, so to talk about things. So, all right.
There you go.
Yeah.
Great deal of work that goes on behind the scenes. Suzanne, is there anything you wanted to add to that?
I would just reiterate what Mr. Tomczyk said about the Council on Aging and their specialists there, who really are probably the best resource for seniors in our community that have questions.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience? Okay, and Kathy, any electronic submissions at this time? Okay, and if I could ask Sheriff Leon Bruno to come up, I believe we have a couple of guests here from the state, John Adams and Christopher Darlington.
Well, two things. I want to congratulate Commissioner Plutchnick for the young leaders at the Ohio State program.
Yes. Yes.
I got an honorable mention to the really old leaders program. That's sometime in August, so just to mention that. The jail operations are required to meet the Ohio minimum jail standards. And so annually, Captain Brooks has to complete reports and have an inspection by the Bureau of Adult Detention that handles jails in terms of compliance with the Ohio minimum jail standards. I want to point out that the jail has always passed those. In fact, the Lake County Jail in 1995, I think, was the first jail in Ohio to meet all the Ohio minimum jail standards in the state of Ohio, and it has done that ever since. But Commissioner Young had asked that the people at the Bureau of Adult Detention come up and answer some of his questions in regards to the possibility of building a jail, evaluating our current facility. So Mr. John Adams, who is the head of the Bureau of Adult Detention, is here today with Chris Darlington, who is the project manager for the Bureau of Adult Detention. So I brought them here today, so I'll have them come up to the mic and answer some of those questions. Maybe they could explain what they do first.
That would be great.
And then answer questions.
Excellent.
Sounds good.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Adams, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you, sir.
We appreciate it, and thank you, Sheriff Liam Bruno. We appreciate the ability to come up here and give you some answers if you're looking for something. The Bureau of Adult Detention, we provide oversight to the jails. Actually, our mission is defined in Ohio Revised Code is to supervise and investigate the jails. And it's further defined in the administrative code, and we do that through the standards that we promulgate, and those standards each year are what jails are inspected on. So every jail in the state of Ohio receives an annual inspection based on the standards for jails in Ohio, also known as the minimum standards for jails in Ohio.
Very good. Commissioner Young, I believe you had a series of questions.
Yeah, you were gonna, did you want to give us the overview first, or do you want to wait on that, or you want to just pass on that all together?
No, that was the Cliff Note version of it. If you want more detail, I'll give you more detail.
That was it.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm a little slow on the updates.
Yeah, no worries.
Well, I'm in the middle of a bit of a dilemma. On the one hand, there have been numerous reports of here locally of problems at the jail. Not problems with personnel or leadership or any of that. That's fantastic. But things like cell doors just falling out of cells. Prisoners able to walk out of their cells because the cell doors were so ruined by rust or whatever that they just fell out into the hallway. The leaking roof is so bad that prisoners have to be continually moved from cell to cell because they become so damp from the leaking roof seeping into the cells. The plumbing system is rusting out, and there's nothing that anyone can do about it because without huge expense, because it's buried in concrete. When they built this sucker, they poured concrete apparently over the piping system for the building. And so to access the pipes and maintain them, you need to cut through feet of concrete. I'm not talking 2 or 3 inches below the surface apparently, but they're fairly deep in concrete. So how do you maintain, a plumbing system of that nature? The communication system, the electrical system at the building is threatened, I guess, continually, and I don't pretend to understand the details of it, but I guess because of the this heavy concrete structure and the concrete being poured everywhere over pipes, whatever, that there's a dampness to the concrete. Apparently it holds moisture, and that moisture somehow erodes and interferes with the electrical system in a number of different ways. So communications within the jail and even external to the jail are threatened in different ways by potential electrical failures. But the way the building is designed, the deputies, when they're actually forced in some cases, in certain scenarios, to sit in hallways where the prisoners are transported. And so they have their backs to the prisoners as the prisoners are being moved from one area of the jail to the other. So it puts the deputies in a potentially threatened position, just sitting there at their desk working while prisoners are being transported behind them. So that's what we've heard. Now, at the same time, in looking at your reports, there's absolutely nothing there to indicate any kind of a problem with the facility, with pipes, the plumbing system, with the roof, with prisoners being moved, with cell doors falling off, etc. Our neighbor to the east, Ashtabula County, in their inspection reports, time and time again, problems are referenced with the facility. The age, the quote would be, the age and layout of the system doesn't allow for the jail to fulfill this particular criteria. The same with the Cleveland Correctional Institute, which is no longer, I guess, functioning. But when there were similar types of problems presented. And throughout the district, periodically, you see such references to facilities problems. But you don't see any of that here.
And
so my dilemma is, the jail apparently, at least from your perspective, the state's perspective, doesn't seem to have a problem that's worthy of mentioning. And yet at the same time, here locally, I think it's becoming, locally here, the reports continue that the jail needs to be torn down and a new jail needs to be built. So, what's going on?
well,
You can help me with that.
That shows the error of me not going in more detail about our inspections. The annual inspections that we do, the things you meant, or the things you mentioned, all seem to be significant issues, the items you raised. Some of those may be discovered during an annual inspection and some of them may not. Our annual inspections are inspections of jail operations. We don't get into the structural integrity of a jail. There are things that could be going on with the supporting structure of the jail, the underlying infrastructure that we don't see. We're not structural engineers. We don't have that expertise, and our inspections don't incorporate those. Now, if a door fell off, that's a security concern. And if a door fell off during an inspection, or we noticed a door that was either in poor repair or in danger of falling off, we would note that, because jails are required to have some security features. The standards for jails do require that. So that would be noted if we saw it. An inspection that we conduct is an operational inspection where we do look at some of the features of the facility. We ensure that it has a secure perimeter. We ensure that, locks are working, the locks that we see. But our inspections are a 1, 2, or maybe even 3-day snapshot in time of what that jail looks like the day we're there. They are not an overall comprehensive assessment of the underlying structural integrity of the jail. We may not know that there's water penetration in areas unless it's something obvious. If we walk into a jail and we see water cascading down the walls, we'll make mention of that and we'll try to figure out what's happening. But most of the time, if it's not going on when we're there, we have no way of knowing that that's a problem. We don't necessarily get into the mechanicals. There are certain things we do look at. We ensure that you have a potable water system, that you can deliver both hot and cold potable water. We ensure that you have a backup generator and that the generator is tested regularly. We don't assess the overall structural integrity of the facility.
What happened in Ashtabula when I've read their reports, and continually things that are not structural in nature are reported on the inspection reports, things that I'm sure didn't pop up every time there was an inspection.
Well, I can't speak to a specific
So
jail.
You've never read their
Well, I read some of the reports. I don't get to see every report.
I mean,
As the administrator of the division, I have two supervisors that report to me, and they're the ones who supervise the jail inspectors. So they're much more intimately familiar with the individual inspection reports than I am. I will tell you that in inspecting, when we see something, if it's an issue of non-compliance, we provide the jails, our inspection reports are all laid out the same. We will cite the issue of non-compliance, provide them the section number that is covered by the standard, and we'll give them a comment. We'll provide a comment of how the jail's out of compliance, and if we have suggestions on how to come back into compliance. So that's what you're probably reading in the Ashtabula report.
I should have brought it with me, or
Yeah.
at least one of them.
Mhm.
But they talk about the communication system
Okay.
not being up to snuff because of the age and layout of the building, the security perimeters not being up to snuff because of the layout and age of the building.
I'm good for more than just comic relief.
Let's see here.
For those viewing, that was a copy of Commissioner Young's report presented at a previous meeting several weeks ago.
The age and layout of the existing jail facility, Ashtabula, does not provide an established jail security perimeter. The Ashtabula County Jail does not have a secure booking and release area due to the age and layout of the existing facility. Now, that in particular has been mentioned to me at the Lake County Jail, that there just isn't enough room down there to properly book individuals, for them to store their personal items when they first come in, for them then to go to the booking area. And I may be messing up some of the terminology here, but the idea being that there just isn't room to do that properly, that there isn't really room in the nurses area to take care of any kind of sickness or injury that the prisoners are experiencing. Not any kind. Obviously, they take care of most of it one way or the other, but the area they have to work in is extremely limited, much too limited probably for the numbers of people they have to deal with. We have a two-way communication system there, which is something that this says the age and layout of the facility does not provide a two-way communication system in Ashtabula between the central control, staffed post, and inmate occupied areas. Now apparently ours is functioning fine, but I'm told it is somewhat threatened by the problems inherent with the leaky roof and all that sort of thing, which I would think some of these things I would think would be worthy of mention in our inspection report, just to give people like me some ease in approving $100 million expense.
If your communication system was functioning on the day of the inspection, they would find it in compliance. They might not know that it's being encroached upon by water or in danger of being affected by water intrusion.
Could our expertise here the level of expertise that our law enforcement personnel are exercising, which I believe is well above average, if not perhaps the best. Could that be having an impact here? I guess in Ashtabula, I don't mean to demean what they do, but they actually went to you folks and they said, we're having problems with the facility that cause us not to be able to meet all of your standards, the state's minimum standards. Is minimum the right word, by the way?
Yeah, there are two different terms used interchangeably. That's the minimum standards for jails in Ohio, and you will also see them referred to as the standards for jails in Ohio. Both those terms are used interchangeably. There is no difference between the definitions of them.
I see, okay.
Yeah.
So apparently they approached you guys at one of the inspections a number of years ago and said, hey, we have problems here at the facility. Let us show you what they are. And I think that may have been where this perspective, this terminology was picked up and utilized by you folks in filling out their report, the age and layout of the building.
That's a common term. We use it in our inspection reports frequently.
Okay, yeah, it presents this problem to fulfill it.
Exactly.
Okay. Whereas in Lake County, our folks work their butts off to make everything operable and make it work somehow. They put it together and it works. And what you're saying is you guys come up and you just look at it, you see it's working, and your job is done. It's
a little more comprehensive than that, but yes. As a broad overview, yes.
All right. Okay. Well, my problem has been that the one third party that we brought in to do the analysis, which I approved of. I was a new commissioner at the time, in my defense. That they had originally, I didn't realize it, but there's a good chance they'll bid on a new jail if we decide to build one. So I just thought, the people who are telling us whether we need to build a new jail or not are the ones that may be profiting from building a new jail. So I just thought it seemed like we put them in an awkward position by asking them to do the evaluation. So I was hoping to get some input from you folks, but I guess what you're saying is that you really can't give me that kind of input at this point. You haven't been requested. A request hasn't been put in that
I would say
tells
that
you there's a problem with our facility. Can you take a look at this for us? And tell
even
us?
if you made the request, it sounds like that what you're looking for is outside our area of expertise.
Leaky roofs.
Yeah, we can go in. Per our statutory authority, we are limited. Our oversight is the Ohio Administrative Code says that the standards that we promulgate are the criteria for our oversight and investigation of jails. So if there's not a standard related to it, it's really not within our area of oversight. It sounds more to me like you're looking at the structural integrity of the jail and you want a snapshot of that and see what people have to say about the structural integrity of the jail. We aren't able to provide that expertise. We don't have that expertise within the Bureau.
When the age and layout of the building, if you will, is impacting the ability to house prisoners in certain sections of the jail, is that something that could be included?
That is something that we look at because, and a lot of times when that phrasing is used, age and layout, it could be because cells are too small. Right now we have a requirement for a single cell. It has to be 70 square feet.
What if they're too wet?
Pardon me?
What if they're too wet?
If they're too wet, we would have probably some safety and sanitation or sanitation and environmental standards that would address that. We would want to see things are in good repair. If it's impacting the inmate population, it may not be something that we would definitely note as non-compliance, but it would be a technical assistance opportunity where we would suggest to the county that they need to repair that.
What if we can't get water out of the building because the pipes are rusted out, and we have to jerry-rig up plastic tubing?
You're getting into quality of life issues there, I believe, if you can't deliver hot and cold potable water to your staff and the inmates.
Yeah. So maybe it's just a situation where you guys aren't being informed of things to take a look at when you come in.
Some things are not easily seen. Some things have to be pointed out.
Yeah.
If people point things out to us, we look at it. If it's within our area of oversight, we'll make mention of it. It may be in a non-compliance statement. We may find a jail non-compliant with a standard because of what we saw or learned or observed. When it comes to providing expertise, that's why we have a project manager, Chris Darlington, the gentleman beside me. He has construction expertise, and he'll go in and provide suggestions on what they might do. What we don't do is we don't tell counties, or we do not tell counties that you need a new jail.
Oh, no.
That's strictly in these chambers where those and with the sheriff's consultation, that's where those decisions are made, not by us. You know what works for you. You know what fits your budget. You know what you guys need. You represent your citizens, and we don't do that. But if you're looking for technical assistance on things that we might be able to help you with, or possible ways that things can be repaired, we would see if Mr. Darlington will be able to help you out and provide any advice. It sounds like Lake County has good expertise on staff. The jail staff absolutely functions at a high level.
Yeah.
Your jail does a good job on their inspections, and that's a credit to their staff and the leadership provided by Sheriff Leon Bruno
That's right.
and Captain Brooks.
I agree. Chris, can I ask Chris a couple quick questions? Chris, you inspected the Ashtabula jail, I believe, right?
I went up there for a phase one of they're wanting to build a new jail. So that's when it comes to me. If you're doing any kind of building or reconstruction, you have to, I'll look over your plans and make sure you're meeting our criteria.
Yeah.
For that. As far as inspecting Ashtabula, I've never inspected Ashtabula County.
I see.
We have jail inspectors that actually conduct the inspections of jails.
Right.
Chris is usually brought in during the construction phase. We have, in addition to the standards for jails in Ohio, we also have construction and renovation criteria, because part of our mission as defined in code is the review and approval of plans for new construction and major renovation.
And I'm not here to attack the Ashtabula crew over there or anything of that nature. I was just wondering how a number of those things that are related to the structure and the facility in the building, how those were brought up on their inspection reports. And I think over there, I don't know if you have some familiarity with it or not, either one of you.
I will tell you,
they requested that these issues be looked into. In fact, that's what I was told by, who's the inspector?
Joe Cummings.
What was it again, Sheriff?
Joel Commons is our jail inspector up here. I will tell you, I am not able to discuss another county's facility, especially without the background information in front of me, so that's not an area that we could go into.
I'm sorry I'm putting you on the spot.
Yeah, I apologize. It's just not something
No need to
that we can do.
All righty. Well, I think that pretty well answers my questions.
Anything?
Well, if I may, while you're here.
Sure.
Commissioner Young and I, we've had some passionate, spirited discussions on this subject. We both come from very distinct backgrounds. I have a bit of an advantage. I used to work for the county in the telecommunications department. I was one of the grunts pulling cable in that building before it was commissioned. So my familiarity with its systems is a little bit more than average. As a professional out on my own, I'm still a state licensed contractor, so I have background in the construction side of things, and I have a deep appreciation for that. I also worked with the sheriff back when he was, I believe, a sergeant at the time, if I'm not mistaken, and eventually jail administrator, and I have a tremendous respect for the staff and 37 years of experience, I believe, if I remember the date there, for our current administrator, that Captain Brooks. That's deeply That's a tremendous accomplishment. That's depth, and I am excited and happy to hear you refer to our staff as having expertise. That's essential. That means a great deal that you're independently certifying. I'm going to say certifying. That may not be the right word, but as best you can, just having a friendly conversation, that our staff has expertise. And I think what happens is, and it's becoming clear to me that if you have a deep understanding of something and you're having a conversation, and I always say that Commissioner Young represents a segment of our community. I'm pretty sure construction, jails in particular, it's a very unique animal. There's a lot of specificity to that. So if I could kind of dumb down your role maybe a little bit, I'm kind of thinking it's like, well, maybe you're more like the umpires. You're the people on the field that say, are you following the rules? Did this play go according to the rules? You don't design the stadiums. You don't maintain the stadiums. You don't pick the coach. You don't even pick the ownership. The people, in our case, pick the ownership. I've got 234,000 bosses here in Lake County. They picked us as the ownership. Yeah. And then we pick our team to manage that building. And we have our staff that are the day-to-day players. And are they playing by the rules? You'll call foul if you see, you mentioned quality of life. Water in, water out. It doesn't matter if we can get the water into them. If we can't get the water back out again, that's a sanitation issue.
You are correct.
Okay.
And yes, that's a pretty decent analogy of what we do. If you guys get into that construction phase or the renovation phase, whatever path you determine to follow, you still have to follow Ohio Building Code. The Department of Commerce is going to have something to say in one manner or another. I'm assuming that a county as large as Lake has your own building commission that oversees and follows the regulations of the Department of Commerce. Our construction and renovation criteria, they are not a comprehensive roadmap from which you build a jail from the ground up. What they are is they are an addition and should be considered as a supplement to the regular building code, Ohio's building code. Now, we talk about security walls and what a security wall has to have, but the underlying structural engineering that goes in that talks about wall loading, floor loading, we don't get into that. We talk about, we'll talk about door structural integrity. It has to be a certain gauge steel. Door frames have to be a certain gauge steel, but that's for security purposes. That's not for structural integrity. So most of the things that we deal with are related to operations, related to health and safety, related to quality of life, and most of all, related to security. We want to make sure that, that we do that, that we both control, but we serve our population too.
No, that's good to know. And, in the state of Ohio, I think we can all agree that there are facilities in far worse shape than what we have. Particularly
yes.
Southern Ohio. And I will criticize their staff and their leadership. I think Ashtabula has done as good a job as any locally, but there are communities that have been neglectful, to the point of, I would dare even say, negligent. And this $50 million that's going to be spread out over 2 years, I think that was more of a concession on the part of the legislature to try to get some funding down there to remediate those problems before we have loss of life or somebody does something inappropriate. I'll leave it at that. And in some regards, that $50 million is almost rewarding bad behavior. And I like to say high performing. I think it's fair to say that, as the sheriff pointed out, very, very correctly, since 1995, we've been hitting all the metrics because we know what those rules are, and we don't want to have a foul call on the play. We don't want to have a flag thrown. We don't want to.
Sure.
Again, I'm trying to set what the role is. What is it that you do? And,
I do have some other questions.
Oh, absolutely. No.
You're doing great.
And I want to, at a previous meeting, again, this is not a criticism. In conversations with our colleagues and talking about what the resources are, bringing you on as a consulting engineer or somebody to give us a critique, the phrase was they're absolutely worthless. Now, I know that sounds incredibly harsh, but that's not where your worth is.
Exactly. That's out of our specialty. Yeah, you're the analogy of a hammer and a screwdriver.
Yeah.
If you need a hammer, we happen to be the screwdriver. While I think it's a very beneficial tool, and we serve a purpose and a very important purpose, it's not the purpose you're looking for right now. It's not the services you're looking for. Now, we may be, if we can provide technical assistance, please let us know. We make ourselves available. We have a excellent relationship with all your jail staff. Captain Brooks speaks with our representatives, whether it's myself, the supervisor, or Inspector Commons, on a regular basis. Sheriff Leon Bruno, especially through the COVID crisis, his management through the COVID crisis has been absolutely great. He's been great to deal with. That doesn't mean he and I always agree on everything, but we've always had the discussion. He's always taken my call. I always take his call. So yeah, you guys you have excellent leadership up here.
No, that's very comforting to hear, because we're coming through the very tough discussions.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm coming at it from the perspective of what do we need?
Mm-hmm.
What are the needs? We're going to find out then what that cost is, and then we're going to figure out how we're going to pay for it. I don't want to start with, well, we got to figure out this pot of money. We don't know how big that pot is or how small it is, and what other resources are available. As our finance director, I give him high praise and credit and the courage to say, within current revenues, we can't do this. But he does also follow up very quickly, I might add, to his credit. We're looking at grant opportunities, we're looking at other funding sources. So we're looking at every avenue in parallel with the effort. But some of these things can take place concurrently. They don't have to be consecutive. They can go at the same time. If I could just use a couple of simple examples. You mentioned we have to have a generator. Is it tested? But at no time do I believe you're looking at nameplates, data manufacturing, estimated service life, end of service life. Those issues are outside your scope.
Correct. Yes.
And one of the things, my background's on the electronic engineering side of things, so I'm more familiar with the electrical system. So when you've got panels, distribution centers that are obsolete, the manufacturer no longer supports. There may be some used equipment out there, some new old stock floating around. You're not making any decisions. Are the lights on? Yep. Now if you get there and half the building's dead, I'm sure somebody's going to have because that's going to be, again, impacting quality of life, serviceability, the control systems.
Yes. Okay.
So service life, if I could just take that to a little broader, service life and overall consideration of service life. That's not a consideration within your scope of authority, your scope of work.
It's outside of our scope of expertise. Yes.
Okay. And you'd mentioned statutory authority, area of oversight. Those are things that we need to take into consideration as we look to you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm sorry, I'm just checking things off here. It just goes so much easier. And you're checking off all the boxes. I'm very happy here. So when you talk about review and approve plans, as our process develops and we start to decide what our needs are, and we start getting some concepts, that would be the appropriate time to be sending information.
Yes.
Hey, take a look at this. Get that partnership.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. We beg we usually beg the counties that once you decide what path you're going to take, let us know, send us a letter of intent, because that gets you engaged in the process and it opens up the lines of communication between everybody, because Chris, Mr. Darlington, he will work with your design team. He will be there, and there are separate phases. We have a phased plan approval process that consists of 5 phases, and through that process we'll take you through schematic design, the construction documents. Included in that are the development of policies and procedures, because not only do we want to see that you have a properly designed jail, we want to see that you are putting the thought into how you're going to use these spaces. How specifically will this space be utilized? How will incarcerated individuals be processed through this area? How will you man it? And these are all it's a pretty comprehensive plan approval process, but it's based on our construction and renovation criteria and the minimum standards for jails.
Very good. And a phrase that gets used quite a bit is programming of space.
Yes.
That's another way of
Yes.
saying.
And that's one of the check boxes is programming. You know, how is it set up? How are you going to use the space?
K2M, that's who we've had do some reviews. We're looking at delivery systems. We're looking at a model of, let's say, bridging design build. We're looking at a criteria architect, somebody who would be the advocate for the county, and then holding others accountable so that we don't get that gap of the designer says this, or the builder says that, everybody points, and you got that gap that we get stuck with the bill. So we're trying to minimize the cost, we're trying to maximize the effectiveness, the efficiency. K2M, you're familiar with them?
Yes.
And good experiences?
We don't really make recommendations on individual companies. I will tell you, we're familiar with them. They've been involved in other projects. There are other counties you could probably reach out to. They should be able to provide you a list of their customers.
Sure.
And that's probably the best way to decide if they're the team for you.
Oh, and that's fair. You didn't grimace. I didn't see you hurling. So
Yeah, yeah.
it's, that first reaction, like, oh dear God. But all kidding aside, though,
Sure.
I have gotten good feedback. There's a reason why we continue to work with them. It's been a good experience thus far. So there's different roles, but again, the process has to play out. And you talk about renovation, because that was one of the things that we had seriously. I think arguably, I'm going to say I probably exhaustively had pursued renovation, refit, addition, and given what we have, where we need to be, it's reasonable to conclude. And I'm not trying to put you on the spot, new construction, but when you talk about review and approve plans, one of the questions, because we get a lot of people who are armchair architects, give it a fresh coat of paint, do a little tuck pointing. And I'm just going to throw a question out there, and I know this is dangerous to do this, but could this building as currently configured be approved for construction and put into service today? This jail, if we just said, okay, current standards, we want to build this.
That's not a question I can answer. I will tell you that the construction and renovation criteria have changed over time, just as has the Ohio Building Code. And it may not be due to inadequacies in the building. It might just be due to code changes that it couldn't be approved. But yeah, that's not a question I could really answer.
Well, let me throw a few at you, specifics. Could we have a cell with no windows?
You can have a cell with no windows, but you have to provide natural light.
And if you can't provide natural light,
if you can't provide natural light, that would be a no-go.
The construction guy's smiling. He knows where I'm going.
Yeah, no, we would have to speak to your design team about a way to get a way to get natural light in for the inmates. It's very important for not only just safety, but for mental health reasons too.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then, Commissioner Young pointed out, Ashby Beulah, they specifically had an established jail security perimeter. That's
a requirement.
That's a requirement.
If you can't keep them secure, you
gotta have that layer.
Exactly.
Which
yeah.
we do not have. Although and again, to Commissioner Young's credit, it explicitly says that in the Ashby Beulah report. I realize don't have the benefit of it in front of you. But it does not say that in ours. But it doesn't mean that we don't have it, because we don't. You can walk right up, touch the building. People draw on the sidewalks and stuff so they can get to their loved ones.
We actually, with jails, the jails are a little different than prisons in that most prisons have a big fence around them and a lot of real estate between the fence and the actual building. The jails, their secure perimeter, for the most part across the state, the secure perimeter is the outside wall of the jail.
Okay.
That's the majority of jails across the state. It's either the outside wall of the jail, and there are some jail operations that are enclosed either partially or maybe wholly. I can't think of any that are wholly, but some are partially wrapped by other ancillary services, that the secure perimeter may be an interior wall, but it's one through which access is controlled through a secure vestibule.
And that's one of those, and this is why I'm pointing it out specifically for benefit of my colleague and all those who may have an interest. This is literally a case by case. The rules.
Oh, it absolutely is. Yeah, there's no blanket.
Sterile reading of
Correct.
One thing and it applied to all.
It would be a. I don't think it that you can take one inspection report or even 5 inspection reports and gauge the quality of your operation or the building from looking at things that other people are found in non-compliance for or found in compliance for, because we do take it based on the totality of what we're seeing. Because there are people, sheriffs have been able to successfully show us how they meet the requirement, because there are times that we'll see something and we think that maybe something is not quite up to standards, and in speaking with the jail administrator or the sheriff, or maybe it's the frontline correction officer, no, this is how we do it. And they'll show us alternative ways in which they meet the intent of the standard, and that's one of the things we look at too.
And that actually gets to my next point of, for example, Cuyahoga County. For the longest time, they'd get a clean bill of health. Again, snapshot in time, what was observed at the time of the inspection, based on what was discussed. And then not long after that, it was about 10 people wound up dying. I'll look to Captain Brooks on that one. But at that point then, I'm assuming, I believe, your inspections increased, so your opportunities to see things, that snapshot in time, became more frequent. So it's not a criticism of you guys missed anything. It's just what was taking place at that snapshot in time, that moment in time. Is that a fair?
I will say, without addressing Cuyahoga County, just in general, that yes, the greater opportunity you have to observe something, the more thoroughly you get to analyze it.
Okay. No, I think you're hitting on every point. Commissioner Young, I believe you have more?
Yeah. You've been an inspiration to me with your questioning. How many standards do you guys evaluate when you come up to a facility? How many standards, minimum standards, are there in the state that jail should aspire to?
I can't give you the. It is. It's somewhere in the neighborhood of 181. We have 54 essential standards, I believe, and the balance are important standards. Up until this year, and let's just speak full-service jails, we have 5 different classifications of jails in Ohio. Your jail is a full-service jail, so that's the typical county jail. So in speaking about typical county jails, up until this year, because of the number of standards, each year we would break it down. We would inspect a jail on all 54 or 55 essential standards every year. And then we would take the balance, or the important standards, and we would divide them in half. And we would inspect one half one year and the following half the other year. So in a 2-year cycle, every jail would be inspected on all of the essential standards twice and all of the important standards once.
Okay, and those include things like operational standards, health and safety, quality of life. You mentioned
yes,
earlier. I was taking notes.
Those are the broad topics. We actually have them broken down. They're broken down into chapters, and it'll be like reception, classification, security, sanitation, environmental, food service, housing.
Right. Yeah. And on every one of those standards, Lake County meets or exceeds them.
I would have to look at your reports. You can pass an inspection. Yeah, you can pass an inspection without being 100% compliant with everything. You do have to be compliant with 100% of the essential standards and at least 90% of the important standards.
So we're compliant with at least 90%.
Yes.
And there hasn't been a mention of anything in the last 3 years or so of anything on our inspection reports of any kind of discrepancy with meeting those standards. So I'm really proud of what our folks here have accomplished. One reason I dug into this so much is the tax increase that we're being told by our finance people is probably an absolute necessity. And I appreciate that. I appreciate their frankness, because they know we'd like to, obviously we want to provide the best service possible. I do not want to lay a heavier burden on taxpayers. We talked about beds, more beds may be necessary at some point in the future. We don't know that. I mean, the capacity for the jail, according to the state's 429 people. I think we were in the last report at about 300. So it isn't as if we're about to exceed what the state calls our capacity. And we're meeting all the standards, as far as I can tell. I mean, we could assume maybe there's something we're not meeting. I don't know why we'd make that assumption, but I guess you could make the case that maybe there's something under the surface that isn't mentioned on the report, but it's there nonetheless. But according to everything I see, we seem to be meeting all the standards. We were contemplating a property tax increase. And of course, needing more beds for our prisoners with a property tax increase, and solving that problem with a property tax increase could very well mean that some of our citizens don't have beds at some point or another because they can't afford their homes any longer. Excuse me. So it's a huge decision on our part. And even though this isn't your area of expertise, the structure of the building, I never thought the building was about to fall down. But in reading over the inspection reports and seeing that so many other facilities have indeed been judged for facility and structural problems, that before we build a new building, I wanted to know from the state, does the building as it's currently constructed seem to be getting in the way of our meeting the standards that the state is demanding, the minimum standards the state is demanding? Or is there something about the building, as you can see now, that's limiting? Apparently not, obviously. I guess I'm answering my own question here. I apologize.
But I think you are.
But from what you, go ahead.
No, I think that in any county, not just speaking Lake County specifically, there is an indication when you're, and it's only an indication, when you're looking at a inspection report. The inspection report shows you that the jail was able to comply with those specific standards that were inspected that year. Those standards, once again, they don't delve into the structural integrity of the jail as a whole. There might be some standards that touch on that, in the area of that regular maintenance must occur and stuff. So there might be a notation in a report or an issue of non-compliance found if regular maintenance isn't completed. But the report itself may not pick up structural things with the building. Our reports are what they are. They inspect for the standards for jails in Ohio very good, and the inspections on the standards for jails, I'm confident in that process, but you can't, I would be reluctant to try to make any other statements about that inspection other than it was a one-day snapshot or possibly a 2 or 3 day snapshot of what your jail operations were like at the time that the inspector was present and walked through the building.
I see. So the jail is meeting all the standards, but at the same time, what you're saying is there is a possibility that even though it's fulfilling the function as it's currently constituted, that there might be reasons to consider tearing it down and building a new building.
There could be.
There could be.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Boy, you don't make my job any easier.
No, probably not, and I apologize.
I see. Well, so your function then is simply to make sure that people are getting what they need in the way of health and safety, that the
Yeah.
public is getting what they need in the way of security.
We regulate the operation and report on the operation.
Yeah, and in some cases, the facility itself can get in the way of operations.
Sometimes it can, yes.
Yeah,
As you've quoted from reports and other reports, sometimes the physical structure of the building does prevent jails from meeting certain standards. Most of the time, it's with space.
yeah. And there have been no such reports from Lake County. Now, they could have existed from what you're saying.
It
but
could
they
have, because
just
space...
might not have been reported.
Well, and
One
space
reason or
issues wouldn't necessarily, if space issues were the only issue you had, you could still be found compliant with your inspection, because a jail can miss up to 6 important standards, and most, if not all, of the standards related to space and cell size and dorm size are important standards, so they could miss a couple of those and still be okay, as long as they didn't miss any essential or miss too many important.
But all those would be mentioned on the report.
Yes, they would be mentioned on the report.
They haven't been mentioned on Lake County's report.
Okay. Then
Yeah,
apparently Inspector Commons didn't find a problem with
We
it.
met every standard. There was a year, I think it was about 6 or 7 years ago, we missed one, I forget what it was. But other than that, we've nailed it every time.
That's great.
Our people make it happen. Okay, well, that's all I've got. I think we need to keep on looking at the issue, and
We are always
about a
available.
tax increase. That's
Yeah,
not your job.
no, I understand
But,
that.
that's something I'm very concerned about.
And I want you to know that we're always available to you as the commissioners, and of course, the jail knows that. We're a phone call away. Schedules may have to be adjusted, but most of the time, we can make things happen on fairly short notice. So if you guys need something, please let us know. We are here to serve you just as much as we're here to serve anybody else, and we just want to make sure the best outcomes are.
I don't want to give you the wrong impression either. You're not talking to a guy that is opposed to the building of a new jail, simply because, I don't like police officers or something of that sort. I would love to see us build a new jail building. If the sheriff says we need it, then if Captain Walters and others say we need it, then by golly, we better do everything we can. But a tax increase is a huge obstacle. So that's where I'm at on this, just so you know a little bit more about me.
Yes, sir.
But I'm so glad you came up.
No, thank you. Thanks for the invitation.
Sure. Well, I've got you though, because I also drew inspiration from your following, so this is all good. This is what these public meetings are about. And then I've got a few questions in regards to continuity of care.
Okay.
It might sound a little esoteric, but these are the kind of conversations that we have here. Do the standards, do they or do they not address issues of mental health, addiction treatment, things like that?
Yes, we have standards that speak about primarily intoxication, detoxification procedures and practices that should be present. We have a inmate pre-screen, an inmate intake screening, and a 14-day health appraisal that are all required by the standards. And on most, if not all of those, there are questions related to the condition of the inmate. Are you seeing observable signs of possible intoxication? Now, I will tell you, I'm paraphrasing. I just don't know. But yes, we do have standards that cover that. Same thing with mental health. Also, we have standards that also address suicide and suicide prevention, and that the jail has to have policies in these areas.
And again, I know
Some of these areas.
No, and I get it. These are our minimum standards. I get it.
Yeah.
So, one of the things that we are working hard on, though, is return to work. Good God, return to society. Trying to reduce recidivism. Are those part of your standards?
We don't have. I can't think of any. We consider that reentry is what we call it, reentering society in the DRC. And I can't think off the top of my head, but like I said, there's 181 standards, and I admittedly don't know them all by heart. But I can't think of anything specific that we have that addresses reentry. However, I will tell you, if you have questions about reentry or are interested in that subject, we have a complete section of our department that's devoted to inmate reentry or reentry of the incarcerated individual into society. And we can make connections for you. If you have questions about that, we can put you in touch with some of our expertise in the prison system. Once again, like us, they aren't going to tell you what you must do. We'll provide you advice on what you can do and what's available to you.
And in the reports, again, I know you don't have benefit of the report in front of you. There was references to jail population.
Yes.
That's literally like the census. It's a snapshot in time.
It's a one-day snapshot. We have a couple different numbers that are cited in a jail inspection report. The first is we talk about the general housing capacity or the facility capacity. That is the number that the jail says that they can hold. Most of the time, that's the design capacity. When the jail was built, the architect said you can hold so many people. We also have another, more important, I would say, to us anyhow, is the Bureau recommended capacity. And the Bureau recommended capacity is the number of inmates that we feel you should hold. And that's what we regulate you according to, is the Bureau recommended capacity. And it's based on things such as available square footage for the inmate. If it's cells, I'd already spoken to that. A single occupancy cell has to be at least 70 square feet area of floor space. And if you're in a dormitory, you have to have 50 square feet of floor space plus the availability of 35 square feet per occupant of day space. So we just kind of round that together and say that in a dormitory setting you have to have 85 square feet, but it's broken down into two individual components. Different architects will come about meeting those in different ways. Sometimes we have to gently nudge them in a general direction, and but most of the time on our new builds we have no problem meeting any of those space requirements. And then there's cells get bigger as the number of occupants increase, the cell size requirement increase also.
So on the capacity issue, we had the design capacity original. We received a waiver to increase that capacity, and then there was a recommended capacity. We want to take away that waiver and reduce it. Again, I think this is where that negotiating and discussing comes in, and how we can justify keeping that. So that was also one of the things that was discussed publicly. So that the capacity issue, again.
My guess it was through a variance. We do variances.
Yeah.
Do you guys have a variance? You run a modified dormitory?
Variance was in 2011.
Okay. And you guys have a modified dormitory, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, we do sometimes with modified dormitories where we may not have the cell space, the square footage in a cell that permits the occupancy of whatever number of inmates you want to put in there, 1, 2, 4, whatever it may be. So if a jail can request an exemption or a variance and they have to show that they otherwise meet the intent of the standard, and most of the time what we'll go with is typically referred to as a modified dormitory, where they agree not to use their doors. The doors of the cells will remain open, and the cell block in essence becomes an open bay dormitory. It's kind of like an open bay dormitory with individual rooms, but the cell doors have to remain open.
So the common area counts.
Yes, and that way they can all share in that common area and that common square footage. And sometimes that, now I will tell you, that's not a given if they apply for it. It has to be safe and secure. We have to ensure that it's safe for the staff, that it's safe for the other inmates, and it doesn't otherwise impede the operation. So, but yeah, in this case, I seem to remember that Lake County was issued a variance on housing issues.
Right. And again, I'm trying to go through all these here. Well, let me just jump to this next one. So, Commissioner Young, good point. The building's not about to fall down, but we did have a serious issue with the exterior of the building falling off. Is that would not be something that's in your scope of work? You're not going to go out there and test the bricks and
No, we don't go out and test them. If we notice something, structural, we'll definitely bring it to the attention of the jail authorities. It may or may not fall in our standards, depending on where it is and how significant of an issue it is. It's not something that we inspect. We don't. crawl into the access areas where we can see behind the facade and see the connections or anything like that. We don't uncap the block and look for water intrusion into the cavities of the CMUs or anything like that.
So you're just looking at things that are readily accessible?
Yes.
Anything that you have to do that's extraordinary?
Right. There may
or
be
invasive.
There may be occasional forays into a crawl space, or not a crawl space, but an access space between cell blocks or something. They may say, "Hey, open up that access," and you're looking for things, but that's not a guarantee that would happen, because most of those things are outside our area of authority.
Excellent. And then hopefully this will be my last question. Renovation rules for an occupied building. If we chose to renovate this building and it stays in service, I'm sure there's some strict guidelines, noise, dust.
They would have to present a comprehensive plan on how they intend to manage the population and security of the facility. We have jails that try to renovate in place, or I don't want to say try, we have jails that have renovated in place and maintain operations, but we need to make sure that you're keeping up the services, that you can provide meals for them, that you can provide health care for them, that you can safely move them back and forth, that they have safe ingress and egress of the building, both inmates and staff too. These are all for all occupants of the building. But I'll also tell you, the building inspectors are a great resource on that too, because they too will have a lot to say about what you can do and what you can't do. Our big thing is we want to make sure that you can maintain the quality of life for the inmates and the security for the community.
Excellent, excellent. Sheriff, Captain Brooks,
Yes,
you both look like you have things to contribute and add?
Yes, I do.
Please, sir. The microphone is yours. But I expect it back at some point.
Since it's public record, I just want to correct something. We don't have doors falling off in the jail. The discussion was that the door locks are so old that the metal has deteriorated, and you can kick the door and jeopardize that lock failing.
Right, before you go on, I have to apologize, because I misunderstood.
Okay. But I just, since it's public record, I just want to make sure
That was mine.
people understand that.
I apologize.
I think we're dealing, the key understanding here is we're dealing and evaluating the jail with three different aspects. Operational, and that's what the Bureau of Adult Detention and Captain Brooks and Lieutenant Simpson here work on. That we treat the prisoners fairly, we get food in, we get water, there's potable water, they have adequate living space, those types of things. Those are operational issues. And we do well on the operational issues. The other two issues that are affecting us here are mechanical and structural. I depend on really our experts here in Lake County to give us an adequate evaluation of the jail. We are fortunate that we have two individuals that work for the county that have been here since the beginning of this jail. Paul Stefanko, who operates telecommunications, and Mark Eifelis, who is head of our Buildings and Grounds Division. And they are the ones that are telling us, or every day look at the mechanicals, every day look at the structural issues. And it is those individuals who know this building best. For instance, Paul Stefanko works with our door locks and our door systems for security, and has maintained those by doing things that originally weren't part of the design to keep us operational. And at some point he said, these parts aren't available anymore. What are we going to do about parts? You have Mark Eifelis from the Buildings and Grounds Division, and they're working on every aspect, the heating, air conditioning, cooling systems, the plumbing systems. He told me the other day they drilled in to put an anchor in the wall, and out came water like a spigot out of the brick areas, which told you the bricks are loaded with water. They look at all those issues and they say at some point, as in 2010, 2011, 2012, they said, we need somebody to come in who are experts in these areas and evaluate the jail. And that's when K2M came in and clarified that what those individuals see every day is true. It is problematic. There is building deterioration, and that's the structural and mechanical aspects of the jail leading forward. So operationally, yeah, people are okay in there. We keep them safe. But at some point, that's not going to be possible. And if that's not possible, you have to build a new jail. And the new jail will take about 4 years to do. If these individuals come in from the Bureau of Adult Detention and said it's not safe to keep inmates, we got to send them somewhere else. Sending 100 inmates somewhere is $1 million a year. Sending 300 inmates is $3 million a year. To correct, we're not at 300 inmates a day. We're back up to 350 inmates a day. And we are climbing in terms of that in-county population. The other point that is an important aspect of this is looking 5 or 10 years out. And that's what my job as a leader is to do, is look 5, 10 years out and let our citizens know here's what we're looking at. From every statistical aspect that I have studied and been intimately involved in the past 30 plus years of the operation of this facility, our population is climbing, and we will be out of beds. If I don't say something early on, I am remiss in the job that I do as the sheriff of the county. The other aspect I wanted to talk about today is there are other issues mechanically and structurally, as in ADA compliance. This jail would not be approved today to open, and I say this as the sheriff and my knowledge there, it's not ADA compliant. If we had to move into this facility today and achieve ADA compliance, estimates are about $10 million to put it into ADA compliance. In that it would be impossible to do that based on some of our structural parameters that they have to deal with. So those are important things. The last thing, and I don't mean to get into a budget issue here, but just to go back to something that you said, Commissioner Young, and I feel it's important because I'm not a tax and increase guy. I'm actually pretty conservative and for most against taxes, unless it's absolutely required. For instance, nationally, when they were talking about $3 trillion for infrastructure that had nothing to do about infrastructure, I was totally against it. When they said, well, we need about $900 billion to repair bridges and roads, did I want to pay more in taxes? No, but I'd sort of like roads and bridges because I like to drive places. So I'm for that tax increase because it's needed. Yes, there is going to be a tax increase, but I disagree that if we build a jail, people will lose beds at home. They'll be forced out of their homes. It seems like that sends this impression that it's going to be thousands of dollars taxed to our county taxpayers over 30 years to build a jail, and that's not true. Because it's important to me, I've asked, I says, if we had to increase taxes, what's it going to increase for a $200,000 house? What are they looking at as a tax increase for the year? $400, $500? $70, not a month, $70 for the year. Although I don't want to pay another $70 on a $200,000 house for the year, in the scope of cost today, that $70 will not make somebody homeless. And I just wanted to mention that.
Go ahead, you have something to say.
And if I just, you articulated extremely well 3 key areas. Operational issues. I think we can all agree that your staff, your leadership, doing a fine job making the most of the resources you have. The mechanical issues, we're actively trying to maintain mechanical systems in order to maintain compliance with essential, and I'm trying to get the right wording here. Okay, so we got the essential and important standards. So we are working diligently on that. We've been doing as many improvements that are practical to increase efficiency, lower the cost of operations, natural gas usage. We've managed to do a number of things to save funds there. Structural issues. We took care of what I would call criticality 1 things. That if a system failed, potential for loss of life. If the skin of the building falls off, and there have been catastrophic failures elsewhere, even in the state of Ohio, we made sure that we were ahead of that and inspected. Certainly.
If I could add to your catastrophic failure, and this is one thing I forgot to explain, in the current jail facility, you have food storage. If you were to take this box here and divide it in half, this half is what we have for fresh storage, this half for freezer storage. We have deliveries every day because we have insufficient storage. Now, I'm dating myself to the 1970s, but if we remember the trucker strike of the 1970s, for weeks there were no deliveries. If we did not have a delivery after 1 week, we would be imperiled in terms of our ability to feed the inmates, because the jail was never built with sufficient space to house cold and frozen storage. That's an aspect that we would have to develop inside the new facility to do that. My fear is if something like that comes up, we don't have the, for instance, right now restaurants, because they know of the rising costs, stores are buying huge purchases so they can keep their costs low because they have large storage areas. We don't have the ability to do that, and I just wanted to mention that.
No, actually, that's much appreciated, because that supply chain, the vulnerability to supply chain disruptions. So there's so many factors that are being considered that, again, need to make it into the public dialogue. It's all about sufficiency and adequacy. We've seen what happens just in the last year. These are very real issues. I don't know what more I could add.
Thank you.
Thank you. Captain, do you want to?
Well, before you move
Sir,
on.
yes. Commissioner Young.
We pick on the sheriff for a minute here. No, I'm not going to ask. I'm not going to ask any questions. I prefer you not. In fact, if I ask you a question, I'm in trouble because you answer questions extraordinarily well. But in reference to the property tax increases, the increase that we're contemplating, the $70.
Well, let's back up. I'm not saying that's being contemplated. I know that was.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
that it's being contemplated. People are thinking about it. You're thinking about it. I'm thinking about it. Maybe Commissioner Hamercheck is not, and I understand that.
I don't think we're at that point. I think we need to keep beating the bushes for effectiveness, efficiency, cost control measures.
Well, that's good. I like that approach. That's fine. But at the same time, I do have a tendency to contemplate. So at any rate, that's being contemplated. My concern there is not necessarily the $70 in and of itself. It's other factors surrounding it. Like we're going to be, property values are going up significantly in Lake County. Property taxes are going to be going up, with that, obviously. At the same time, every year we have numerous levies that are put on the ballot. So property taxes are going up, and the $70 would be a contributing factor to that for the $200,000 homes out there. For some people, those property taxes are already almost untenable. They're on the cusp right now. And so it would put some people over the top, I believe. And there's a tendency, having been in government for quite a while now, there's a tendency among folks like me on occasion, in our positions, to make all these assumptions about how, well, that can't be that impactful. That wouldn't have an impact. And yet for some people out there, $70 is extremely important. You know that better than I do, I'm sure, with the folks you interface with, the people in the jail, and their families. So that is a concern of mine, that any kind of particularly property tax increases today. I'm still very uncomfortable with that, although some of the things you mentioned do ring true to me. In fact, that's something I've debated over and over again in my own mind. Is the $70 really that important, Ron? And I want to be very careful about that decision.
And I understand, and that makes a lot of sense. I guess this is self-serving since I'm in the field. We're taxed on a lot of different things today.
Too much.
And people have to make evaluations. We have parks and recreation, we have myriads of different things, from schooling to whatever. My feeling has always been, constitutionally, is that the only way our society can function safely is to have safety and security as its base. If you don't have safe neighborhoods, if you don't have security, you can't enjoy any of the rest of your life. So I'm fighting two battles right now.
Right.
And that's having proper policing, enough policing. We just dealt with an issue where people had AK rifles and semi-automatic rifles and pistols and got into this gun battle. And so I'm talking, we need to have a safe community where this doesn't happen, and part of that's policing. So that's on one end, people have to make a decision on. And the other one is, if you have offenders that are a threat to society, we need to have a place to house them properly. If that doesn't happen, both are threats to security, but the facility you're housing the threats to security in should be developed in a way that it can bring reform, whether that's drug and alcohol treatment, mental health treatment. So we not only house offenders, but return them more safely to society than when they first came. If we can make that safer to their families, It's safer for their children. It's safer for their neighbors. It takes people off the public dole, so to speak. So you really need a center that adequately can do that. Those two combined, to me, make for a safe community that we can enjoy all the other aspects of our life.
And you're saying the current facility then doesn't provide that to the point you'd like it to?
To the point that I think we can achieve better outcomes.
Okay, good. All righty. It's all good.
Okay, all right, well, I think we can conclude the jail discussion. Kathy, did we receive any electronic submission of questions or comments? Indicating none, thank you. Okay, well, this kind of brings us to the conclusion of our meeting, and I think it's, if it's worth mentioning a couple times, let's mention it again. We've got Concord trustee McIntosh and County Commissioner Plutchnick. They're both at the Leadership Academy for Rising Star elected officials at Ohio State. So I want to again give our colleague, hey, it's an excused absence because he's down there proudly representing Lake County, and he's down there with Morgan McIntosh, and that's high praise. So they're both good men, and we're honored to have them as colleagues. So if there's nothing further to come before this board, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
And I will second that. Discussion? None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Young?
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck?
Yes. Thank you all for all your efforts today. This meeting stands adjourned.